Sofia is a certified nervous system regulation and life coach who is passionate about helping individuals break free from cycles of being stuck in their heads, cycles of being stuck in stress, self-doubt, and overwhelm by guiding them to regulate their nervous system and silence their inner critic. Through a blend of life coaching and neurosomatic intelligence techniques, Sofia empowers her clients to cultivate self-compassion, build resilience, and experience true emotional freedom. Sofia is on a mission to help others reconnect with their bodies, expand their nervous system capacity, and step into confident self-expression. I love that. That's a really good one. Good for grounding. I'm recording already.
Perfect.
Welcome to Openly Spoken, the podcast to help you show up, speak out, and be seen. On this podcast, we talk about self-love, relationships, sexuality, spirituality, and more. Hi, I am your host, Celia Antonio, and I am a relationship and sexuality coach for ambitious women with a history of toxic relationships who desire to reconnect to their sensuality and who desire to feel worthy of receiving healthy love. I celebrate you for hitting play on today's episode. I hope that you find this very supportive and helpful. And if you could show some support to the podcast by hitting subscribe on YouTube or on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, wherever it is that you are listening to or watching this episode, it would mean the absolute world to me. Thank you so much for being here. Now let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to Openly Spoken, the podcast to help you show up, speak out, and be seen. Thank you so much, Sofia, for being here today.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you here because your sessions are pure magic. And I'm not sure where to begin, but I will share that I feel like nervous system regulation and nervous system capacity are phrases that are kind of thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
Like it's something that I've heard a lot, even in my coaching certification. And yet when I showed up to our first session that we had together, I had no idea what to expect. And I was like, honestly, completely surprised by what it is we were doing. And so how would you explain then what nervous system regulation actually is versus maybe how you see people talking about it?
Yeah. I have so much fun explaining it because I feel like people are, I don't know why that's not happening. So nervous system regulation, like in simplest form, is like our ability to like regulate from a fight or flight back to rest and digest, back to fight or flight, and then back to rest and digest, and just being able to modulate that without going to a super high fight or flight or a super low rest and digest. That, in a nutshell, like the basic nervous system regulation is just that, being able to modulate your fight or flight and rest and digest.
Okay.
Yeah.
And not getting stuck in one of them.
Exactly. Not having like super highs or super lows or getting stuck in one of them. Like what's happening these days is like our stress level is so high that we go super high and we just stay there to the point like we burn out or we go into chronic stress or we go into chronic pain. So goal with the nervous system regulation is, okay, even if you go to a high, being able to come down. And then not going to a super high again because you have your drills, you have your regulation. So yeah, you're going up a little bit, but you're able to come down again. Yeah, you're going up a little bit, but you have the capability to like come back down again, and you're not like going up, up, up and staying there. That's the very basic. That's very basic nervous system regulation. I don't know why people don't talk about it like that.
Yeah. And it's very like, it's needed in our modern day life that just like moves so fast. So I love that you're doing this work. And I love that on the sessions, like you can really feel the difference. And I'm curious to know how it is that you even found this work and maybe there was a point where you learned about the nervous system, because so in my journey, I learned about the nervous system like a long time ago. I knew about fight, flight, freeze, fawn. I heard about the regulation, but I'd never heard of doing the practices that we do in your sessions until I showed up to that first session. So I'm curious, like, when was it that you first learned about nervous system regulation? And then maybe what are some of the things you tried? And then when did you find the work that you do now? And you were maybe like, oh, wow, yeah, this is what works.
Right. So, like, for me, I will have to like go right back to my story and like where I
Yeah,
started.
go
So,
ahead. That's what
so
we're
I
here for, huh?
so I grew up in a very chaotic environment, very unstable household. Both of my parents have their own stuff that was going on, and because of that, they were not um, able to be like primaries, like good, healthy primaries. So I grew up very much on my own, not learning how to like regulate myself or regulate my emotions. No idea. In fact, like I ended up taking care of my father,
Mm,
and he had like really strong anger outbursts, and I was the one who was like the mediator. If he's in
hmm
a fight with somebody, I would go on and like calm my father down, and then I would also go and like mediate with the whole situation. So it was weird and very chaotic. So I grew up with a very high level of stress in my stress bucket, I must say. And growing up, I never learned like how to bring that stress level down. So like we said, like for nervous system regulation, like a high up is not ideal, and staying in a high up is catastrophic. So I grew up in situations. I grew up in Pakistan. We didn't have too much money. Home was chaotic, a lot of control, a lot of cult kind of environment at home. So
mm,
I was always very, very stressed. And I think I was around 16 where I completely dissociated, and I just stayed dissociated. Like I was just in too much stress. I could not handle it anymore, and I just dissociated completely. Eventually, I was able to, a lot of stuff happening. Eventually, I was like able to come to here, Istanbul, Turkey, 3 years back, and like get out of the whole situation I was in. But my stress levels again were super, super high, and I was working in marketing till like last year, performance marketing, in which like you have to perform, you have to bring out the numbers. And if the numbers are not coming in, you feel bad, like you feel like there's
mm,
something wrong with you, which is not true. And I realized like last year I don't want to do this work anymore. I was in therapy for 5 years at that point, just trying to like resolve what's been happening with me in the past. I was not going anywhere with therapy. I feel it was just like band-aid after band-aid after band-aid. I tried meditation, self-help books, like whatever I could find, I would try, but I would feel like I was not getting resolved. I was always very much up here, and I just
hmm
didn't know why. Like I strongly believe we're not flawed, and I strongly believe I was not flawed. I knew there was something going on. I knew there had to be like answers to what I've gone through, or like what I was feeling right now, right? That unfortunately I was not able to resolve to that point. So last year I decided, I was very fed up with my job, very high stress levels already. I was fed up with my job. I thought I need to serve more people, so I became a certified life coach, and I was like, I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna spread this work out into the world. I was enjoying life coaching, and I quit my job. I got my first client for life coaching very quickly. I also at that point like set up very strong boundaries with my own family, and I was like, what's been happening in the past is not gonna happen anymore. Like all of those changes were too much for my nervous system, that I shut down completely. Like the lost, like leaving my job, being visible in my business, it was so hard. Like after getting my first client,
Yeah,
I could
it's
not post
very
any.
activating for the nervous system. Yeah.
Exactly. And yeah, like I still remember that. And then of course, like establishing a boundary when I'm a people pleaser, right? Or used to be. And
Yeah.
saying that no was too much. I did not expect. Like I shut down. I was like in a very high for a long time, and then I was done. I was done. I
Yeah.
shut down. I was in earlier this year. I was just in my bed, and that was the time like when I found out about nervous system regulation. And it was literally like for the first time in my life, I was like, I think I'm dissociated. Like I've been dissociated for years, but for the first time, my brain was like, I think what you're going through is like dissociation. And I typed that in
Mm-hmm.
Spotify, and this like podcast comes up that talks about dissociation and how it's related to like trauma. And I also realized, like going through that podcast, that I have complex trauma. So I was diagnosed with PTSD in therapy, but
Mm-hmm.
the complex part was super crucial. That was not diagnosed, unfortunately. And
Mm-hmm.
somebody with complex trauma, like you've lived through trauma for a very long period of time, to the point like this that escape doesn't look possible. So your brain adapts, your brain changes. And
Yeah.
you, for those people, you have to actually really go, like we stay up here because our bodies are not safe anymore. Like we escape just to cope. And it's super important, especially for individuals with complex trauma, to work at the level of the nervous system to reestablish that connection with the body, to release trauma, to like come back to yourself, to be functional again. So yeah, I found nervous system regulation through the podcast. They offered like a certification and took that up, and I applied that work on myself, and my life completely changed. Like I'm here on camera right now. I could not do that last year.
Oh my gosh. Yay.
And like
Oh,
that's what I do with my clients now. Like I really
yes.
think like the people who are constantly stuck up here in their head, and they have tried like different modalities, if you're still unable to like come back down to your body, we need to do nervous system work just to establish that safety again in the body, so that we can do the things that we actually want.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I can very much relate to you. And I really hope that my siblings are listening to this episode because, having grown up a little similar to you, because I have a stepdad who's also from Pakistan, I'm just so curious about how someone in like how are you even exposed to words like dissociation, and like how are you even open to therapy? Because like from the family I come from my stepdad's side, like therapy is not something that you go to. It's like, oh, I don't need therapy, like I'm not a crazy person. So
Yeah.
how are you even open for that?
Oh my god, that was a journey. So for me, oh my God. I grew up in Pakistan, and then my family shifted to Saudi Arabia, and I spent
Okay.
13 years there. I finished my schooling there. And after school, like there's literally nothing, unfortunately, at the time I was there. Like there was not any university for expats that was affordable that we can actually go
Oh,
to.
yeah.
So I
Okay.
ended up going, I did like distance learning, and I became a certified chartered accountant.
Mm-hmm.
And and it's a very reputed certification. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna take this, and I'm gonna go out and find a job. But guess what? As a woman, as an expat woman in Saudi Arabia, there were no jobs for me at that time, even though I was super qualified. And
Yeah.
oh my god! So I knew I needed therapy. I talked to my family about therapy, and they were like, not happening, not gonna happen. It was such a taboo, and like for
Yeah.
a girl to go out, and because there is something, people are going to know something is wrong. What are people going to think? What will people say?
Mm-hmm.
Or like, it's
Mm-hmm.
like saying and admitting that something is wrong with the family first, and then with the person in the family. When I grew up, like, we had to always pretend that everything was perfect. We were just the perfect family. That's how, Pakistani culture is. You have to always have smiles and pretend. So I
Yeah.
was not allowed to go to therapy, actually. And but I was like, no, I'm gonna figure this out. So I went in Saudi. We had very good internet, so I went online, and I was like, I'm gonna do something online. And I did like a course in marketing, and I just started online marketing. And I think the moment I was able to afford therapy, I went to therapy because I had my own money at that time.
Did you do
Like
like online therapy?
we shifted back to Pakistan during like in
Okay.
a couple of years, and I had like enough money at the time, and I was like, I'm going, man.
Yeah.
I'm
So you did in person in Pakistan.
Yes,
Okay.
in person in Pakistan. From the money I was able to like earn through online marketing, and that's
Mm-hmm.
how my therapy journey started. Yeah.
Wow. So how did you even learn about therapy in the first place?
How did I learn about? I think I was always curious, and I knew there was a lot of mess going around me, and I knew,
Yeah, there is that like intuition when you're younger of like
yeah,
something's not right here, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
something's off. Especially when I was in my early and mid 20s, it was like something's just doesn't make sense. I was literally,
Mm-hmm.
I remember like there was a point when I went to therapy. I was literally thinking like she's gonna tell me that something's either wrong with me or there's something wrong with my family. There are only two possibilities.
Yeah.
And I think for therapy, when I was in Saudi, unfortunately, we didn't have any therapist that I knew of. Um, so that also kept me from like going and like taking help. But
Mm-hmm.
once we relocated to like Pakistan after 13 years in Saudi, in Pakistan we do have a lot of therapists, thank God. And
Oh,
you do
that's
have,
good. Yeah.
yeah, we do have online, we do have on site, and I think this therapist was recommended by my sister, I think, who was married off. So she was able to like go to one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's like, I think she's good, and I just took it up and I went.
With what you said too about like when you first started going, that you thought the therapist would either tell you there's something wrong with you or there's something wrong with your family. I
Yeah,
loved what you said earlier about believing that we're truly like, what was it, the words that you said? You said, I believe that
yeah,
we're not flawed.
yeah,
Yeah, and I am 100% with you as well. I feel
yeah,
like nobody's flawed, nobody's broken, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just we are wired for survival. And like you mentioned with the complex PTSD, like our brain and our nervous system is adjusting so that we can survive in the environment that we
yeah,
are in.
yeah,
And that is what is happening. Like, that's like the root of, I would say, probably 99.9% of things that we go to therapy for, because
right,
we've adjusted to survive in the environment that we're in. And then when we're adults and we're in a quote unquote normal environment or like something that's, not the same as home, and we're like, wait, like that was happening, like was not like, for me, I remember realizing that I was always in a state of anxiety growing up. And like I always saw both my parents in a state of anxiety. And I,
right,
I thought that like being in a state of anxiety was just how everybody was.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then realizing, like, I actually didn't realize until I was almost 30 years old that I had been living in a state of anxiety my whole life. My
yeah.
husband reflected to me in a conversation. I wish I remember what I said, but he was like, that sounds like anxiety. And I'm like, you're right. So when we get that space from our family of origin, and we get the kind of like contrast between how we move in the world versus how our friends, our peers, coworkers, people around us move, then we start to be like, wait, I
What's
need
going
some support here. There's like something off.
on? Right,
Usually we think there's something wrong with me. Like, I think that's where most of us start. We're like, oh, something's wrong here. I have a problem I need to fix,
yeah,
before we come to the conclusion that like none of us are broken. Like, that is why you are the way that you are, because you adjusted to be able to survive, which is
yeah.
so fascinating.
It is. It
Yeah.
really, and it's like, yeah. I remember it was easier to like believe that there was something wrong with me. Like I wanted her to say like there was something wrong with me, than to be able to like face that how you have grown up might be flawed.
Hmm.
That's very, where do you even start?
Yeah. It's painful to face that,
It is.
because like there's that, you belong to your
Yeah.
family. Like, there's like this sense of belonging that's kind of like, oh,
Yeah. And
you know,
it shakes like your foundation of truth as well,
it
right?
does.
True then
Yeah.
where do you belong exactly? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it becomes very hard to navigate the setting boundaries, which, like, I celebrate you so much for being able to set boundaries, because, like, setting boundaries when you come from that culture, like just from my limited knowledge of having one parent who was from Pakistan, like setting boundaries is almost like, I don't know, you're going to be killed or something. Like it's like very intense to talk back to an elder.
Yeah. Talk back or like have your own voice and your own decisions, your own dreams as a woman. That's not allowed.
Yes.
Belong to your family, and then you're going to get married off and you belong to your husband and his family. So there is no agency for women in my culture. Like we don't have agency over our own lives, unfortunately.
So hard.
Yeah, like that's the majority. I cannot say that's all of it, but that's the prevailing culture there, unfortunately. I like to say no to, and that wiring does get ingrained in us, right? Like we're good girls.
Yes, we're trained to be good girls. We're trained to be, I feel like we're kind of, in that culture, we're kind of trained to be servants to the men around us.
Yeah.
You know, like I remember being maybe like 8 years old, and my grandmother or aunt, one of them or both of them who was living with us, they're like, you know, as soon as your dad comes home, like make sure to have water for him and like a snack for him, which like, yeah, it's fine. But I think it was a little, like, I remember being young, just being like, I wish I was a boy. Yeah. Like, not because I had any body dysmorphia or anything like that, but just because I noticed, like, oh, it's better to be a girl. I mean, it's better to be a boy. That was my brain being like, it's better to be a girl, because that's how I think now.
Same. Like, I had a moment in teenage where I really wished I was a boy, because it felt like life would be so much, I would have my own life for that.
Yeah.
I would have my own life. I would have my own say if I was a boy. Yeah, I had that phase too.
Yeah.
I wonder if every girl in our culture has that phase. I wouldn't be surprised if most of them are like wishing to have more control in their own lives.
Yeah. And then there's also, I feel like, not enough open conversation about like growing up and going through puberty as a girl, and like what's going to happen to your body, and everything is just very hush hush, and it creates like a lot of shame. And I'm curious if you can speak to like, what do you think shame causes in the nervous system, and like how can we lean on nervous system regulation drills and work to kind of untangle and unpack all that?
Yeah. So shame can cause a lot of inflammation in our own nervous system, because we're literally like angry at ourselves and like attacking ourselves in a way, you know? It's like, I'm bad, I'm not good enough. That's not the truth at all. But that's how we're, you know, that's what we're feeding in our mind and then in our body. And if that's like ingrained and fed over and over, like it causes in a lot of inflammation that we see in our bodies. Like that's our body literally saying, hey, we're not bad. What are you doing?
Oh, yeah.
And it's our body's way of like just saying, hey, just please stop. Don't, you know, it's not how we are or who we are. And like we can see like a posture gets rounded down. It's hard for us to like look into anybody's eyes or even like look up, you know, and talk to somebody, because we're bad. We need to be small. So for nervous system regulation, like we have the way I work with clients, like we have a lot of drills to like first get out of that posture. We even do like eye training to help us like get out of that. And then of course there's a lot of not a lot of, but there's like cognitive reframing too that we have to do to like deal with that shame messaging that we have in our system, that are like running in our system without us even realizing it.
Yeah. And that's such a freeing thing to unpack and to work on.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And I can very much relate to like being someone who used to have like, I was like schlumped like this. Part of it was also like just being ashamed of my body. Like growing up in the 90s in America, it was always like women with big boobs are beautiful. And like, I don't have that. So I was always like trying to like hide. But then I relate to you with the like the eye contact piece, even like what you said earlier about like being able to be on a podcast. Like I used to be such a little mouse. That's how I explained it. Like my voice was so small and I thought I was speaking up, but it was so quiet. If your nervous system and body is trained that it's unsafe for you to speak up, for you to have an opinion, for you to disagree with someone around you, then of course it's going to be hard to express yourself. And yeah, that's been a big part of my journey. That's actually a huge reason why I call my business Self-Express Babe, because it's like part of my journey. And it's also like what I'm here to create. Like I'm here to help other women find their internal self-expressed babe and like bring that out.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear about like your journey with being able to be more self-expressed and how nervous system regulation helped you with that.
Oh, I would love that. So for me, I think I was always a person, like I always felt like I didn't belong to my family, if that makes sense. Like I was always like, I felt like I was on the outside. I grew up with a lot of narcissism in my family too. And like one of the narcissistic, like I was the scapegoat in my family, and scapegoats are like, cast it off. So I always felt like on the outside, but I always had a very strong sense of self. Since I was a kid, I was like, no, I'm meant to be something. I am someone. I'm not just, I'm going to do something with my life. Like I always had that. And I think that was the thing, like just that faith and belief in myself, like that has really helped me through some of my very, very difficult times. Like I really believe like God has put me on this earth for something. I'm not just supposed to be somebody's servant. I don't think it works like that.
Yeah.
And just holding on to that. There were times when I forgot that too. Yeah, that happened too. But I've always tried to believe, and I kept believing that no, like everything happens for a reason. I'm here for a purpose. I'm here for a purpose. I'm here just reminding myself over and over and over. Yeah, just holding on to faith. And I think it was like, I think I told you it was 3 years back when I left Pakistan and I came here. And yeah, I always believe like I'm going to build my own life. I'm going to be my own person. I'm not afraid to like work on myself, look at my past. Like I was in therapy for 5 years, just working, believing. And I remember like I was not in healthy relationships either, right? If you're coming from trauma, you're just attracting similar stuff, right? And I remember there was a point where I said, I'm just not going to settle for any man. I would rather be single than, I don't care. Like my culture, you have to be married by 30. You have to have a family. You have to have kids, right? And if you're not married by 30, you're expired. I was like, hell no. I'm not. I was 27 when I said I'm not getting married unless I meet a partner, a man who's worth marrying, who's worth getting married.
I love that.
Yeah, I don't mind.
I celebrate that so much for you. Yeah. And I hope I know there's at least one other woman out there who's like gets some piece of inspiration from that and is like, I'm going to do that too. So thank you for sharing that.
You're most welcome. Yes. Like don't settle. So, and yeah. And I remember like 3 years back when I came here, I just had like these things in myself, like I'm going to do something with my life. I had been through a little bit of therapy, so I knew something was definitely off with my family. And I was processing all of that, trying to build myself up again I'm in Istanbul, Turkey now. Mm-hmm. And like I really held on to listening to myself, prioritizing myself, not sacrificing myself, and keeping true to my values and not settling. Mm-hmm. And then I ended up meeting my partner. I told you about him, right? And I feel like that was a big turning point in my life because I had somebody. So I grew up not being in very abusive situations. Like I was, that my whole life was like that, not being mistreated my whole life. Mm-hmm. And I was mistreating myself too then because that's what I learned. And then my other relationships were not so healthy too because that's all I knew. But then I think just believing in myself, holding on to something better, believing and not settling, all of that led me to meet my partner. I like to believe who was the first person who like really treated me with care and love, like unconditional love. You know, I didn't know what that was before. And he was the person who was reflecting me back, like what that looks like. And for the first time, I think in my life, I had like a safe relationship in which my patterns were being reflected. So I was healing even more, you know,
Yes.
through that reflection.
Yeah.
And that was when that's the thing I think that gave me the strength to really put strong boundaries with my family. Because I was like, if there is this stranger, right? Like I know my family for 30 years, 30 plus years. If this stranger, let's say, has just met me and can be so nice to me. We were in a relationship, but still, you know, it's like a person I know for a year or 2 years at that point. Then there are definitely more people who would do that. And I don't have to put up with mistreatment anymore or abuse anymore. And I think that was like, yeah, just having, I think first is that belief and faith in myself and that reflection that I deserve good, that I am treated good. Like that really gave me the strength to like really put strong boundaries and be like, no, I'm never gonna tolerate this again. And I don't. Like, yeah, not at all. And I did shut down. I told you, like, after those boundaries.
Yeah, it's scary.
Very.
It's very terrifying to set a boundary with your parents out of all people. Yeah.
It is. And my nervous system did not know that can happen too. It was just too much for it, right? Like I didn't have, my subconscious was not ready for it. My subconscious was still very much in, we're like slaves for our family, unfortunately. We're like servants for our family. So to stand up and say no was very big. And at that time I did not have any nervous system regulation, but like learning nervous system regulation is what helped me to repattern this trigger, this behavior, and repattern myself now to make it for my system to feel safe and okay and empowered to say no. Like that's how I'm repatterning myself now using nervous system regulation, right? Because it's not just up here, like your body has to be behind it too. It's super important.
Yes. That's why I always say that mindset work is not everything, because like you can be saying, I'm empowered, and like do the affirmations of I'm empowered. But if you don't feel that in your body, there's no point. Like you have to feel it, not just believe it.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you're not feeling it, it's just going to cause more conflict, right?
Yes,
because
for sure.
Just saying something else and your mind is something else and you're like, what am I? You know, who am I then?
Yeah.
So I think it causes even more harm than doing you any good.
I agree with you, because you're gaslighting yourself.
Yeah.
You are, yeah.
No, if nobody else is doing it, I just might as well do it to myself.
I love what you shared about like you know, being in therapy for 5 years and feeling empowered to be like, I'm not going to marry someone, like I'm not going to get married unless I meet someone who's like worth marrying. And then I love what you reflected on, like once you were in that relationship, your patterns were mirrored back to you.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people kind of get stuck in this, like, I have to be 100% healed, or like I can heal everything on my own. Because the truth is, like, all of our wounds, in my opinion, like probably every single one, it's relational. And you can heal some stuff on your own because you're healing that relationship with yourself, the relationship with your body, relationship with your mind. But then when you have another person, it requires you to go deeper than you would have if you were just single, because there's nobody in your life triggering things.
Yeah.
You know, it's such a big invitation to be like, oh, yeah, you're right. Like, I'm being an asshole right now. Like, thanks for sharing that. Like, let me take a breath and, you know, be with myself. And it's also so beautiful that finally landing for the first time in that healthy relationship gives you evidence that people like that exist. And I had the same experience when I was 25. I met my biological dad. And he treated me like a princess, that I was like, it completely changed the type of men I would be interested in. And it completely shifted And after meeting my dad, I got into my first healthy relationship then. Unfortunately for me, like it was like I was still in that people pleaser kind of state at that time. So I wasn't truly 100% myself in that relationship because I was like, it was that first healthy relationship and I was like so scared of losing them.
Yeah.
And this is something that I don't know if you like to read memoirs, but I recently read Demi Moore's memoir. And she talks about doing that as well with her relationship to Ashton Kutcher, how it was like such a different relationship. So she was like molding herself to keep him around. And she realized in hindsight that was what was a detriment to the relationship. But everything happens for a reason. And I'm glad because, you know, now I'm married and I love my husband. And he has been like, I've grown so much in these last 5 years that we've been together because of what you said, that like reflection. And we also both knew each other when we were younger, but we had to, on our own, do the work and then be able to, like, we both reflect our patterns to each other. Even still to this day, I feel like there's always room to grow and there's always room for improvement and deeper connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a lot.
I love that. And I love like how growth happens in this reflection, right? Like
Yes.
I love it. Growth happens in this reflection and then your relationship grows deeper too.
Yeah.
And like that safety that yes, I can show my patterns, or like I like to say I can mess up, but I know this person will still love me and will not take away their love. My upbringing was make mistake, love is withdrawn.
Yes,
love.
Exactly.
And just not to have that and know that I'm human and I can make mistakes.
Yes.
And this person can be upset, yes, but they still love me.
Yeah.
The same.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my God, okay, this can happen. There's so much safety in that. And I feel like when you're not feeling crap, like I would just feel so abandoned, right? Like in the past, I made a mistake, love is withdrawn, I'm abandoned, I'm bad, shame is back, right?
Yeah.
To be in a place where you can mess up, you can make mistake, but love is still here. There is so much responsibility that I like get to take for myself and self-reflection that I can do without feeling like I'm abandoned and feel that shame, right?
Yes.
And I love that. I love how you grow in safe reflection and safe mirroring.
Yes. Yeah. It's so freeing to just be like, because I think the biggest thing it does is it allows the full spectrum of emotion to exist.
Yeah.
Because your partner is allowed to be angry without it meaning anything is wrong or bad. Like it's natural to be able to express all of your emotions. And everyone is just allowed to be. Like there's no needing to fake or pretend or act. Like it's just really, it really opens up a lot of space for truth. And I think that's why it's something that really builds such a strong connection. And not only that, it's like such big motivation, like how you said that even a year ago you wouldn't be able to be on a podcast. I feel like having love in your life that is that safe for you to be your true self, I think it's very underestimated how motivating that is.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
To really come to clarity of like, this is what I want in life and I'm going to get it.
And I think also your identity as your own person.
Yes.
Because like we're not being codependent, right? Like we're not sacrificing our authenticity for this connection.
Yes.
So we get to step into our own identities, like our true identities more and more every day. Like that's what I do. And I love it.
That's exactly how I feel with my husband. For sure. It's so beautiful.
It is, right? It's like, and like we get to step into our own identities more and more. And it can be scary because like it's uncharted territory, right? And we didn't learn that. Like growing up, I always had to be, in the good girl identity. It's disaster for for me and my mental health, but I feel my brain feels safe in that because that's what I know and that's what I see other women doing around me.
Yeah.
So it's safe to walk into that to my brain, even though it's not healthy.
Mm-hmm.
But to actually, take a gamble on yourself and like figure out your own identity and say yes to that, and having that safe love around you it's so motivating, like you said, right? And it's so empowering. Like, yes, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna be myself, and I know I'm gonna be loved no matter how I am and who I am. So I might as well be me this time, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah. And I think you can also get that in friendship as well. Like, I feel like my friendships I have now versus the friendships I have 5 years ago are completely different. And I knew we can relate on the sense of like not having that close of a relationship with your mother, with our mothers. And I feel like when we have close relationships in our lives with other women, I feel like it kind of fills the gaps of like what we would have received if we had that close relationship with your mom. It's definitely not the exact same, but it gets really close, I think. I think there's something very powerful in like what you were just saying about you really come into your own identity when you have that healthy love. I think you also come into that like as a woman when you have healthy relationships with other women, because they reflect you in a way that's just a little bit different than your romantic partner.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I gotta experience that.
It's really it's really like that's why like I believe in like like women's gatherings, like even if you're just coming together to read a book, like a book club, or if you're doing like a potluck, or just like I think it's so underestimated how powerful that is.
Amazing. So I need to like join more potlucks then. Yeah, we do brunch here.
Even the group where we met, like I think it's mostly a women's group, right? I so far haven't seen any men in there.
Me
Even
too.
that is like so powerful because it's such a supportive space rather than being like competition.
Yeah.
Which I think is like the old narrative for women. Like it's always like a competition against each other versus collaboration. I wanted to ask you a question in the terms of this like relationship part that we're on, because it's so hard to keep faith and to keep going when you've had that history of toxic relationships.
Yeah.
And I know that there are a lot of women out there who are just like, I give up. I'm just going to be single because men suck, or like whatever it is that they're saying. I'm curious if there's anything you would want to say to someone who's in that space.
I would say, what's your desire? If you desire a companion, he's out there 100%. And I feel like we attract on the level that we're ready for, right? So if you have that desire to be in a romantic relationship and you're just not attracting the right man, I feel like there's just that work we need to do on ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And like that's what I did. I was single for 3 years and I knew I had a ton of work to do on myself and love myself first. Like,
yes,
it sounds a cliche, right? But we gotta love ourselves first. Put myself first. Know how to put myself first. Like, know my own boundaries, right? Like a lot of us, like a lot of women don't even know where our boundaries are.
Yeah.
I worked on that very hard. Who am I? Where are my boundaries? What do I like? What do I want in my partner? What's my non-negotiables? Yeah. I feel if you have a desire, then the person is out there 100%. That's what I held on to. I had that desire. I didn't have any men around me that,
yeah.
But like now, if I have the desire, he's out there. I'm just going to keep working on myself. I'm going to keep believing, and I'm sure he will come up, and I'm not going to settle. I'm not settling for less than what I desire, but I'm willing to get my own level up to my desire, because I was definitely not there. I was in my own icky patterns. And yeah, like I grew up, I thought like relationships were control, dominance, and stuff like I have to be a servant and stuff like that. And I really had to work on myself to like release those patterns and bring myself up to the level of desire I had. And keep believing, not settling, and keep believing even when, you know, it feels like it's not working.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like there were times when I was like I would try to go on a date and it was like, oh my God, he was just, what just happened? I was like, whatever. I'm not gonna, you know, let that come into my stress bucket, whatever. It was just not more, it was just not for me. I'm sure the person I want is there. I'm not gonna let that dictate anything. I don't think all men are bad because of this one experience. I don't think all men are bad. Like I've seen very bad men, yes. But I used to believe that no, good men are out there. And I know that because I have the desire. I'm going to bring myself up to that level and just keep believing and respect and honor myself, and not like, I feel like I've noticed like that to desperation, you know. I worked on that. I was very desperate. I was very desperate for love, you know. I grew up in abandonment and like that conditional love. Do bad, love is taken. Do bad, love is taken. And I had to like work on that part a lot. Yeah, to love myself, to bring myself up to that level, and believe that there are good men out there, and not be desperate for that. Yeah, I think that was my biggest work, that desperation for attachment, because I was codependent completely.
Yes.
Work on my codependent patterns to be enough for myself, to not look for that love that I was looking. I think, of course, we need love from another person, but we do need that love from ourselves too, right? Like to first give myself love, so I was ready to like share it with the other partner. So in a nutshell, like that's what I would say. So it's like keep working on yourself, don't settle, expect good, keep believing, keep working on yourself, keep loving on yourself. And I think if you have the desire, that person is 100% out there.
And I love that you talk about the like needing to love yourself first. And because like what you say is true, that like the external love, yes, it's a need. I think it is something we need. However, when we're not loving ourselves, what we're looking for externally is completely different.
Yeah.
In the situation where we are loving ourselves. Because there are certain like codependent needs that we are looking for someone else to do for us, like a partner that will spend 24/7 with us and not have any friends, and like all the attention is on me at all times so that I never feel abandoned, versus like I've worked on my own abandonment wounds. I'm like best friends with my inner child, and like I celebrate that my partner has his own friends, and it makes me want to have my own friends. And then when you go out to look for somebody, like you're looking for someone completely different. And I think also something that like might probably be a completely different conversation, but I think when we're trained to people please and to have that codependency and be desperate, I think it attracts people that like are abusers, like people that don't really appreciate us, and people that like you could end up in some dangerous situations because you're not with people who see your own value. And that's the most heartbreaking thing I notice about like environments where the women are just taught to act like everything's okay and to just like be a good wife and be a good daughter, because we have to be able to be free, to be true, to be our true selves. That's the only way to be safe.
Yes. I agree with that.
Yeah.
That's reminding me of my past relationships too, where I was really codependent, and
Same.
I was attracting just more abuse into my life.
Yeah.
Like the same patterns I was trying to get out of. It's like, you know, escaping from a cage and just going back into another one.
Right? Like I remember my first long-term relationship. I had friends before like we got together, and little by little it's like, oh, I don't like this friend, I don't like that friend. So like by the end of the 6 years when I was ending the relationship, I had no friends because I was so isolated. It was just me and him. And I can see now like where that came from. And if anyone's listening who's like in that situation, like it's not permanent. Like you really can grow out of it. You really can shift. There's so much opportunity for you to learn about yourself, for you to learn how to have better relationship and communication skills and self-love skills and boundaries and so many things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
There is a life outside of abuse.
yes.
100%. Yeah.
We got pretty deep today, huh?
That's what I get with you every time. So I'm not surprised.
My last couple of conversations that I've had, like I've somehow like speaking of being deep, I've somehow like narrowed it back to like, yeah, it's all because we're afraid of death. Like we're all afraid of dying. So I'm like trying not to go there now. Even though I easily could weave that in right now. What's maybe a question that you want me to ask you about nervous system regulation? To kind of go back to our topic.
I would say like what it gives you.
Okay.
Offers you.
So what does nervous system regulation give you, Sophia?
I feel like nervous system regulation gives you agency. Agency over yourself. And I think that is the biggest thing I had to learn as a woman who didn't have any control in her own life. How do I have agency in my own life? How do I have agency? How do I make my own choices, right? Especially when I was so much, even if I'm out of my circumstances, I'm still stuck in the old patterns. Those old patterns are still running me. Whatever I learned looking at women around me, I'm still operating, and how I was treated, I'm still treating myself the same way, and I'm still looking at life from a similar lens, right? So
yeah,
yes, I'm out, but I have no age. I'm still doing the same things to myself now, right? Like using myself, and I'm mistreating myself, and I have no agency. That's how I felt. That's how I felt when I was like out. And I was like, why am I? And it was so, when I had some distance from my family, it was so clear to me that I'm the one who's doing this to myself. And I had no way, like, I tried to stop it, but I was like trying to stop it from my mind, just like, quit it, just get out of it, just don't do it.
There's like a strict parent in your head, like, don't do that.
Like that. Like, that's how I was raised.
Yeah, it's so funny.
It happens. So I feel nervous system regulation is not just modulation. It's actually about, to me, it's actually about agency, having the control to actually turn off that survival mind, to like have a say in your pattern, to be able to repattern yourself, to be able to like get out of those old habits and old voices and old the things that get ingrained in our subconscious, to actually be able to work on them, to actually even eventually take them out and put new seeds in yourself, so you actually have agency. Yeah, like that's what I'm doing. I'm putting new seeds. Okay, what's happened has happened. It happened. Yes, it happened, but it doesn't have any control. It doesn't get to have any control over me now, because I'm repatterning, because I know how to repattern myself now. I think that's what nervous system work is. It's agency and safety in yourself. Like, safety was such, like, I was always unsafe. I never learned how to be safe in myself. Never. And now to be able to feel myself, feel my body, be like, oh, this is me, and have like a relationship with myself, right? To feel safe, to have a relationship with myself. Like, I think that's nervous system regulation, like, to me. I think that's what it offers, that agency, that choice, that safety in yourself that you can like then take with you anywhere you go, basically, whether that's business, that's life, relationship, intimacy.
Yes.
I feel like in my early years with my partner, I like to joke now that he was in a relationship with my survival mind, basically, right? It was not.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's so funny. There's this stand-up comedian. Her name is Natalie something. She's from Lebanon. And she talks about how she like escaped war when she was like 12 or 13. But then when she was 19, her brother caught her sitting on a guy's lap, and her brother told their mom. and her mom basically shamed her. And she was like, I would rather relive the war 11 times over than be shamed again. And she was talking about how being in a relationship with her, like she wasn't present. She was like scared of everything, and it was like, close the curtains, don't look at me, like turn off the light, like it's just like. I'll find her link. I have her link because I sent it to one of my clients. I'll send it to you. I think it's very relatable and really goes well with this conversation.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Like we're laughing, but yeah, like that's what it happens, right? Like we go into that survival mind where we just don't feel safe. And I feel like intimacy was so scary to me. I used to fight with my partner when he was in conditional love. I was like, why are you doing this? What's wrong with you?
Yeah, it feels so unsafe when someone is like not mad at you for something that you feel like they should be mad at you for. Yeah, I totally relate on that. You also mentioned like I wrote down one of the things that you said about when you left your family. You said you were looking at life through a similar lens. I wrote that down because I'm so curious if you can remember that moment where your perspective on like either being alive, being human, or like the meaning of life, or you know that like I usually call this like a spiritual awakening, when like your perception of what being human is. I'm curious if you can remember that shift and like what that was like for you and maybe what caused it.
Oh yeah. So it's like when I left, it's been 3 years, over 3 years now. And initially, I remember I was still in therapy at the point, and I even took two therapists because with the distance, I was starting to see things more clearly, and I was like, oh my god, I think there was a lot of messed upness, in my past, still close to my family, and I was like, and there was still stuff happening that didn't feel okay. I was just feeling very weird, very messy, and it was like I was in a haze. I used to feel I'm just in a haze, and I was just drained. I was exhausted, and I just didn't know what to feel about it, or what's happening, or why it's happening. Like I'm out, I have a good job, I have a good partner, I have an amazing life. What is this freaking thing? And I think it kept building. I didn't know what to do. I just kept getting more and more stressed. And when I talked about like having that boundary with my family, like something happened. And I felt like the way I grew up, I was the scapegoat. I was, it was like, even if I would ask for something, I would be denied. But like my sister would be given that even when she would not ask for it. And something similar happened. I asked for something I was not given. I really needed that. And, they just, as a gift, she got it. And I'm happy for her. But I think that snapped something in me. I was like, I'm done with this shit. I'm done with this shit. And that's when I started seeing things very clearly. And like that haze shifted. I also shut down. I definitely shut down. But I think in that moment, in it wasn't just one moment, that whole experience. That's when I was like able to make a very clear and strong boundary that it's done. I don't care if I lose you guys. I'm done. And I'm not going to stand up for this kind of behavior and other behavior that's been going on. That was the first time I shouted at my brother for the first time in my life. And like, you don't do that, right? How can you? I shouted at my brother, who's like in place of my father. My father passed away a few years back, and like my brother is the one who's like the head of the family, if you want to say. And for our like that's a big thing. You don't raise voice to the head of the family. You just stay quiet. You're the nice girl. You stay quiet and you adjust. No, I'm done. And I was ready for anything. I was like, I'm going to pick myself. I prioritize myself. And little by, I think since then, I would have memories resurface and I could see things more clearly. Memories will resurface, especially after I started doing the nervous system regulation work. I still get memories back, if you want to say, or like feelings back. And I am able to say, oh, that was not okay. And I'm going to shift my perspective on that. Like, this is actually what I deserve. This is actually what I want. This is actually what I want to do. This is actually what I want to believe about myself. So Yeah, I think the event was just that one event, but I think the shift in perspective, it's piece by piece, I would say. As I'm getting ready, as my
Yeah.
nervous system is ready, that's the shift. That's the shift in perspective I get bit by bit. Yeah. And
Mm.
I'm like building it up slow by slow. And I'm so excited for like the person I'm becoming. I don't know if we had this conversation where I said like this work is not just work, it's my story. We had that, right?
Yes, yes, you shared that with me.
It's my
Yeah.
space in this world.
Yeah.
Like this exactly. Like it's
And you can really feel that, like when you talk about it and like just being a client of yours, like you can feel that passion. And I think it adds such a like genuine flavor to what you're giving. Like you're not just here to like pay your bills, you know what I mean? Like you're giving something because you actually like believe in it. And I think that's truly felt in your work.
yeah. Thank you for that. 100%. So yeah, like I think shift in perspective is piece by piece, but I think the event is that one event that was just. But I think even that event, there was a series of event, and then you're like, I'm just done.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I think your perspective also, once it shifts that first time, it's going to happen again and again in your life.
Exactly. I feel like I can never go back to how I was, but that shift keeps happening over and over and over, and you keep getting more clarity.
Yeah. It's really fun.
Yeah, it is. It's scary too, no? Like
yeah, for sure. It's scary and fun at the same time.
Yeah, but also scary, but the good kind of scary, I would say. It's not the kind of scary where you want to be in bed and not get out at all. Maybe a day or two, but you will get out eventually because it's so exciting. Yeah. So I feel like that's how I would live life. I would dare. I would get scared. Yes, I would be in my bed for a day or two, but I would dare again.
Yes. Yes, I love that. I love that because that incorporates like doing the self-care after doing something that's out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
So I have a couple questions that I ask every guest towards the end. I thought we can go into that now. And the first question is, what does self-love mean to you?
Oh, that's a good one. And that's something I've been like pondering these days too.
And
I think self-love means living. I'm going to give you like the latest version of what self-love is to me right now. Like living from a place of inside out rather than outside in.
Do explain. Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So I recently I realized like the way I grew up, it was all outside based. We talked about comparison too, right? Like how I caught myself comparing and that, that being something else or like being something external thing is the stimulus for me to do something, right? Like this person, what they have, I like, so I'm going to have that too. I noticed like I caught myself doing that recently. And I realized, I think I'm not loving myself enough right now. There is something with self-love because if I love myself enough, why would I want to be anybody else, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. Like self-love right now for me means that, again, that agency to be my own, to have my own choices and to actually really lean into that and see what's happening and see what I want and say yes to that without any external expectation or validation or whatever's going to happen in the external. Yes. Like really lean into that and live life from that place of authenticity.
Yeah.
Of that internal authenticity and come out from that space. That's what I want to do. That's what self-love is right now to me, I think.
Yes. Ooh, I love that so much. I love that because like it really connects you with what is actually real and true rather than like I would say that the like superficial definition of self-love for women would be like getting your hair done or getting your nails done or like having an expensive outfit, and like all those things are fine, but like are you just doing that? And meanwhile, there's like chaos happening inside of your mind and body. Because like the internal world is actually what matters more than the external. But I think when you're in a state of, first of all, not feeling safe in your body and being in your head, it's a lot easier to focus on the external things, on like,
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
external achievements and like doing good in school and doing good at work and making the money. And yeah, I love that.
Thank you. Yeah. Like all of those things are very like survival brain driven, right?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. So if you're in a survival mind, like you're cut off from your body. You're cut off from your true self, I feel. You will
Yeah.
just be next chase, whatever that is. If it's the next promotion, if it's the next car, or whatever next goal you have, even if it's like, losing weight. And that's just not the place to come from. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I just had a realization of like how much we're trained to be in survival mode, not just from our, everyone's unique culture, but just like in general living in capitalism, where like what we were just talking about, like the car, the job, the money, like that's like what you see in every single movie, every single advertisement, like it's everywhere.
Exactly.
We're being
Exactly.
trained to be in our survival brain. That is,
Yeah.
wow. I don't think I ever really, I think I knew that, but I never really like noticed how commonly it is around us. Like once you see it, you can't unsee it. Wow.
It's like, even exactly like if you are on Netflix, or yeah, like I was binging something, and like it just looks so easy for them to have like all this money and everything. It's like I feel like there are like two extremes that I keep seeing, unless you're like in that scarcity completely in
Mm-hmm.
fear, or like this status thing that's going on. And I feel like even in social media it's so common. Like I don't want to be, because the most of the content that I'm actually, I don't know, is it me that it's serving, or all the content is like that? I don't know. But I know it is like the comparison thing I was talking about, right? Yeah, it's just everybody is successful and that's what's making them happy, even that's not true.
Yeah.
True. And yeah, yeah, it was an interesting aha for you. Like, thank you for sharing that. It's making me think as well.
Yeah. Okay. The next question is, what makes you feel the most grounded?
Two things I would say, or three. I think my drills for sure. Nervous system work. It really grounds you. That's the first thing and the only thing that has really grounded me. But I think other stuff that's like complementary, I would say, on top of that, my relationship with my partner has also really grounded me. But then again, I don't want to depend on that for my ground, for being grounded. It's good to have
I
that.
totally get what you mean though. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel the same way about my husband. It's like
And really,
you receive the grounding, but your grounding isn't dependent on them.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't believe in that. And I'm
Yeah.
very proud of my partner too, that he's very firm on that I love you, you're safe with me, I love that, but you gotta have your own safety in yourself. Like
Yeah.
you to have a partner who actively, like, he gives me the safety, but he encourages me to like go out there, or like however, to have my own safety as well. Like
Mm-hmm.
in my,
Mm-hmm.
and I think third is like God. I don't want to say on third. I don't know. I don't know if it will like trigger somebody or not. I don't know. Like for me, like my relationship with God is something that's like ever evolving, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's how I want it to be. But that's something like recently I've started to find some grounding in that as well. Yeah,
Mm.
very
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, like the way I grew up, it was very a lot of religion, but I don't think it was religion. It was just control. I don't
Yeah.
think it was. Yeah, I don't think that's how actually God is. It was just control. So I spent a big time of my adulthood being very disconnected with God. Because
Mm-hmm.
the religion I learned was not serving me anymore. Or I
Mm-hmm.
didn't believe it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But now figuring out my relationship, like what is my relationship there? What do I want? And that's been grounding as well. Yeah.
Yes, I love that you brought this up, even though it could be triggering, because I think you speak to something that I think is very important. And that is that I think your relationship to God or spirituality is something that you need to define for yourself. And a
Yeah.
lot of us just kind of inherit what our parents modeled in terms of religion or spirituality or what God is, what God isn't. And I think it's very important, and I can definitely see how it's very grounding to come to those beliefs on your own.
Yeah.
Because then you truly believe them.
Yeah.
And they're truly coming again from that inside out place. Like the inside is determining how you're relating to this thing outside of you. And yeah, I love that. I would say my spirituality also gives me a lot of grounding. I also prefer to use the word, I don't know, I kind of switch. I like to use like source or the universe, and I definitely do believe in like an energy as like the origin for all life. But I also I don't know if any book out there has gotten it right about like what that actually is. And I also think our human minds are not meant to really fully comprehend what God or source even is, because I think our brains would explode like if we really tried. So. You know what I mean? Yeah.
It's like to like have a connection, like feel that connection. I think that's very grounding to feel like there is somebody out there looking after you. Like there's a plan for me, you know, everything happens for good. I love to lean in on that, but I feel like beyond that it's very difficult to understand, right? Maybe we're not meant to.
I don't think we're meant to. I think it's just whatever feels grounding for you is what you have the right to hold on to.
Yeah,
in terms
100%.
Of,
free will, right?
Yeah, free will. Yeah, exactly.
You gotta exercise it. I'm so mad. Like I'm going off topic, but like I'm so mad when like we grew up in this cult. Like it's basically cult, like how I grew up, right? And that takes away your free will. And I don't believe in a God. Like I don't believe that God wants to like take up your free will. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Yeah, I'm like, no, I don't think. Like I'm supposed to actually practice my free will, even if it's a mistake.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm allowed to make mistakes. I'm human.
That's how we learn. Like a mistake is really just feedback that like, oh, that thing didn't work. So like from it not working, what did we learn about how to maybe make it work? Like, who's the guy that invented the light bulb? Thomas Edison, I think.
Edison, yeah.
I think he failed like 1,000 times before he created the first light bulb. But each time it was information of like, okay, that didn't work. Like, what can we do instead? Yeah. And I think when we come from a background of toxic relationships and complex PTSD, we kind of lose that freedom to make mistakes. And that like, that's a freedom that we need to create peace with so that we can grow in our life, because a mistake is not, a mistake doesn't mean, okay, give up all your dreams. Like, it's just like, okay, that didn't work. What can we, how can we pivot?
Yeah. It's just that.
Yeah. Okay. I have one more question, and then I'll ask you how people can connect with you. And that question is, I'm very excited about this one. Dramatic pause. Dun, dun, dun. What is your favorite part about being a woman?
My creativity. My flow. I feel like, and I think, it's just on one part, my creativity, my flow, my receptivity. I think women are very strong manifestors. I can manifest stuff. I don't think men can. Sorry.
Even though it's manifestation?
We need to make it womenifestation. Yeah, that's
I have a friend who like we kind of pick words apart, and we don't really like the word manifestation, and we call it man infestation, which nothing against men. We love you. Yeah, okay, so interesting. So what can I ask, why do you think that? Just out of curiosity.
For which part?
Why you think that women are manifestors and men are maybe not? or are not.
Okay, so not that they're not, but I feel like women are more natural manifestors. I would say that. Of course, manifest too. Not.
Yeah. I mean, it
Like,
makes sense on like a, you know, biological level where we're the ones, like if we choose to have kids, we're the ones that like grow a life.
yeah,
Yeah. So I can see that like metaphor.
yeah.
I never
And I
thought
feel
about
like,
that.
yeah, I feel like we can. I don't know if it's. I feel like it's most women. Like we can vision things, right? We can vision, and we can believe, and we can make it happen. I feel we have that power, and we don't have to be masculine about it or be hustly about it. But we can like lean in and believe and get shit done. I feel women like that's how I feel my femininity and like being a woman, that I don't have to be like do, even though I can be sometimes, of course, be in that. But to me, like being a woman and being like a strong woman is like having this place of center and groundedness and faith and belief and like leading from there and that place and getting shit done, doing the things I do. That's how I see myself as being a woman, and that's I love that. Yeah.
And it's so great to be able to voice things that you love about being a woman. And this is why I was so excited to ask you about this question, because we talked about earlier how when we were younger, there was definitely that wish of like, man, I wish I was born a boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
celebrating.
I don't
Yeah,
not
same. Celebrating that you've gotten to that place. Yeah.
100%.
Yes.
Yay.
Yay. So, for everyone that's tuned in, tell us about your work, where people can find you and connect with you, and all of that stuff.
So right now I'm mostly on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram, but you will find me more active on Facebook. My Facebook is Sofia Ejaz, and SOFIA EJAZ, and you can totally message me there and get in touch with me. I'm also working on my website. I think it will be up soon. It's sofiaejaz.com, and you can totally like reach me out from there as well.
Nice. And I will put those in the caption /
Amazing.
show notes. Yay. Thank you so much. This
You're
is
most welcome.
lovely.
It was lovely being here, and I really, really enjoyed the conversation. And again, like it went very deep, very quickly, but very safely. And like that's what you do.
Thanks for going there with me.